There's this magnetic pull to the parts of our world we can't see. It's a powerful human urge, right, to map the dark, to explore the totally unknown. But deep beneath the surface of the Earth, in places where sunlight has literally never reached, that thin line between an amazing adventure and an absolute tragedy, well, it gets razor thin.
So what is it about these places? We're going to try and answer that by looking at 4 true stories where that call of the deep went horribly, horribly wrong. And these aren't just adventure stories, they're really powerful case studies that show you the incredible risks that are just lurking right under our feet.
All right, here's our game plan. First, we're going to try and get into the mindset of a caver. Then, we'll walk through each of these 4 pretty harrowing stories, one by one. And at the end, we'll pull it all together to really understand the critical lessons these stories have to teach us about planning, knowing your limits, and frankly, survival.
So to start, we really have to get the appeal. For cavers, it's all about that thrill of discovery, that feeling of being the very first human being to lay eyes on some new passage or incredible formation. But that allure, it exists in this constant, really delicate balance with the abyss, an environment that is completely 100% unforgiving of any mistake.
So, our first case takes us to Kentucky with a 26-year-old named William Coughlin. He was new to caving, had this real passion for it, and he joined what was advertised as a guided wild tour. What started out as just an exciting new hobby would, pretty quickly, unravel into a total catastrophe.
You can see right here how this wasn't just one single mistake, but a whole chain reaction. It all started when the guide left them unsupervised. That was the first domino to fall. Then, after William fell and got hurt, the group made a decision that was, well-intentioned but just totally fateful. They tried to get him out through a different corridor, one that wasn't on any map. And that led to the final error, where his 6-foot, 220-pound frame got hopelessly stuck.
This timeline just reveals the brutal, brutal reality of trying to rescue someone from a cave. I mean, let these numbers sink in. 3 hours just for help to even get there. And apparently that was delayed because the guide and the owner were hesitant to call the authorities. Then a grueling 17-hour effort to try and free him while he was still alive, and the fact that it took another 7 hours just to recover his body. It just shows you how incredibly difficult it is to do anything in such a tight, confined space.
Okay, so our last story was about a whole chain of errors. This next one, the story of 21-year-old Robert Kennedy, it boils down to a single, fatal misunderstanding of the cave's geology. He and his stepbrother decided to do just a quick exploration of a local cave that was mostly unmapped, and they had no idea that one of its features was basically a natural one-way trap.
The entire tragedy here really hinges on this one specific geological feature, a keyhole formation. As you can see, it's basically a natural funnel. Sliding in head first is no problem, but because of the way it narrows, backing out becomes impossible. Robert had no clue he was crawling in to a one-way street.
So you gotta put yourself in his shoes. He went in thinking, like any of us would, that he could just back out if it got too tight. But the reality of the keyhole meant that his only option was to keep pushing forward, right into a passage that sloped down at a 30-degree angle, with gravity literally pulling him deeper. The second he passed that point of no return, his fate was pretty much sealed. And get this, he was trapped 150 feet in. Now, on the surface, that might not sound like a lot, but underground, it is a world away. It made any kind of rescue by drilling from the outside totally impossible. The only way to get to him was for rescuers to follow the exact same dangerous, one-way path he took, risking the exact same fate. Our next case, the story of Thomas Benning, kind of combines several of these dangers. His story highlights 2 equally deadly risks: the incredible isolation of exploring by yourself, and maybe the most primal fear any of us have, losing your light and being left in total, absolute darkness.
Just look at this cascade of failures. Every single step took him deeper into a situation he couldn't escape from. Going in alone, that was the first big risk. Straying from the route he knew, that was the second. But the lack of redundancy, the lack of a backup plan, that's what really doomed him. He had one lamp, no backup flashlight. His only other light source was a single box of matches, and when those ran out, he was left in pitch black, miles underground, which led to his final, desperate move into the fissure that trapped him.
And man, this timeline is just heartbreaking. Because he hadn't told anyone his exact plans, the first search was basically a shot in the dark. Rescuers found his car, they even found some of his stuff, but they completely missed the secret passage he'd taken. And here's the most tragic part. He was likely still alive when they were right there, nearby. It took over a year and a half for his remains to be found, which just shows you the grim reality of getting lost when nobody knows where to even start looking.
So for our final story, we're shifting gears completely. This time, we're not talking about an amateur. We are talking about a living legend in the diving world, a guy named Sheik Exley. His story isn't about getting lost or stuck. It's about an expert who is deliberately pushing way beyond the known limits of the human body to try and break a world depth record.
To really get what he was trying to do, just look at these numbers. I mean, the recreational limit for diving is around 150 feet. Really experienced divers might push it to 300. Sheik Exley was aiming for over 1,000 feet. This wasn't just pushing the envelope, this was entering an entirely different realm of existence. At those insane depths, divers face this invisible barrier. It's called high-pressure nervous syndrome. Basically, the intense pressure directly attacks your central nervous system. It doesn't matter how skilled you are, how good your gear is, it's a fundamental biological limit where your own brain and body actually start to work against you.
And this quote, it is absolutely chilling, because it's not from his final dive. This describes what happened to Exley on a previous preparation dive, when he hit 863 feet. He had already experienced a severe case of HPNS. It was a massive, unambiguous red flag, a warning sign of exactly what he'd be up against trying to go even deeper.
And on that final dive, that's exactly what happened. It wasn't his gear that failed, it was his body. The symptoms of HPNS, plus nitrogen narcosis, which is kind of like being drunk underwater, it all just wrecked his thinking. He lost control, he started breathing way too fast, and he burned through his air supply at a terrifying rate. And at that depth, that's a fatal error. There's no quick escape.
Okay, so after going through these 4 really intense, tragic stories, what are the lessons? What do we take away from all this? Let's pull everything we've seen together into a clear set of principles that, honestly, apply not just to caving, but to pretty much any high-risk activity.
And when you look at these principles, it's like a ghost of every story we just talked about, right? If Thomas Benning had told someone his exact plan, that search might have found him. If Robert Kennedy had just understood the geology of the keyhole, he never would have gone in. If William Coughlin's group had known their limits, this is why this stuff matters. These aren't just suggestions. In an environment this unforgiving, they are the absolute difference between life and death.
And that's our explainer. We end with this thought. It's so easy to look at these stories and just think, why? Why would anyone do that? But these cautionary tales, they're not just about tragedy. They're also a testament to that powerful and, sometimes perilous spirit of human exploration that drives us to see what's out there in the darkness. The real question is, how do we balance that incredible drive with the wisdom to know our own limits?